call unto thee, O Lord, and send thou my life to guide us, for we are weak and afraid, and we lack knowledge. There is no one to hear your plea, no one to answer you, no one to ease your suffering. Lord, have mercy upon us.
Hey, welcome to the NY Patriot Show. Here we delve deep into the abyss, covering topics such as occultism, spirituality, secret societies, conspiracies, and the unknown. Join us in trying to put these pieces together and figuring all this shit out. The NY Patriot Show.
Welcome to an episode of Subconscious Realms. I'm your host, General Lee, and in attendance we have my co-host, the phenomenal New York Patriot of the Occult Rejects. Now then, mate.
What's up? Thank you very much for having me on again this morning.
Oh, thanks, mate. It's always a pleasure doing the show with you. You know that, mate.
Yes, for sure.
Brilliant. Thank you. And for tonight, we are being joined by the Freedom Hacker himself. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the wholesome creator of Truthiverse, Brendan Murphy. Now then, Brendan.
Hey, Lee. Cheers, mate. Appreciate the intro.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. It really is an honour speaking with you, Brendan.
Oh, thanks, man. It's a pleasure to be here.
And Brendan, if you don't mind, just letting everybody know now, I'll include the links later on. Unfortunately, I didn't get them early enough, but if you want to let people know kind of maybe what do you do and where can they find your work?
Oh, yeah, cool. Well, I mean, what I do is fairly broad, as I said when we were chatting. My main thing in my first couple of books is kind of the nature of reality, consciousness, paranormal, afterlife, that type of stuff. I do talk about medicine and the conspiracies, the general global order, that kind of stuff. You can't ignore it. So I cover a lot. And if people want to follow me, I'm on Telegram, I'm on Instagram, Facebook. But my main sort of hub, I've got this thing called Truth, which is TROOTH, which is an uncensored platform. It's an alternative to Facebook, nice. Which we created back in 2018 after our page was deleted. And so we have that. And then I'm building something called the Truthiversity, which is kind of like, excuse me, it's going to be my like little academic home, I suppose, and people who are interested in the work that I'm doing and want to, really go doing the deep dive. That's going to be launching somewhere over the next few months, I think.
Nice. And now, I actually forgot, but Lee did mention to me you did do some books, correct? You just said.
Yep. So I published the first one in 2012, and I'm just working on finishing the second installment to that at the moment.
And what was the first one that you put out, if you don't mind me asking?
It's called The Grand Illusion, a synthesis of science and spirituality. So, 600-something pages of esoteric and scientific goodness.
Oh, make sure it isn't 666.
It was actually, I think the edited version ended up being 665.
Oh, shit.
Oh.
Yeah, that is awesome.
There, mate.
That is awesome. If it was at 666, would you have said, like, fuck it, I'll just leave it? That's fucking wild.
You put that extra one in.
Yeah. That's
Should
cool
do, mate. Should do.
And so what you're working on now is, like, I guess, a part 2 to that?
Yeah, it is the part 2, yeah. So very, very deep dive into not just like the afterlife research, but kind of, big picture kind of and detailed at the same time. So granular and big picture. And I like to just get into things in a way that, not everyone else is doing and point out and observe things and make connections that aren't necessarily being made. So it's going to be comprehensive, but also a bit unique at the same time.
Yeah, sounds interesting, mate. It
nice.
really does.
And what's up with that truth thing you were just talking about? Is that like so it's like an alternative to Facebook, you said?
Yeah, because they did that huge purge, that censorship purge back in mid-2018, and our page was one of the many hundreds that was deleted overnight. And so we just thought, you know what, screw this. We'll just because we'd been planning, Amy and I, my partner and I had been working on something going back to 2015. We actually started to build from scratch a platform that we wanted to, get away from, all these censored platforms with. So it was intended as an alternative. And, what that kind of had to get shelved. And then, another 3 years went by and they started this really hardcore censorship. And so we thought, we're not going to try to rebuild that fan page on Facebook. We're going to just create our own little alternative, and people who are tired of the censorship can come over and hang out there.
Oh, nice. So now I'm assuming other people can make accounts and stuff, or it's just...
Oh, yeah. Anybody can.
Awesome.
It's free. You just rock up and create an account. And if you want to create a group, you can do that too.
Nice. I'll have to check that out after this. I haven't heard of that.
How's it spelled again, Brendan, please?
Trooth.
Troo. Nice, mate. Nice. Saying alternatives to what we've currently got to offer, which is, I don't go on Facebook myself, but...
Oh, that's cool though to have another platform. I want to check it
yeah,
out.
Definitely.
I don't have to worry about censorship, and maybe can find even other creators on there that I could use for my show.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's pretty.
It's always a
cool.
bonus, that, mate, isn't
it? not to be confused with Trump's Truth Social.
No, we were first.
I was thinking that. I was like, yeah, they were out first. That's pretty cool.
What is the current membership status like, Brendan? Is it like, are we talking hundreds or?
We're approaching 10,000.
Oh wow! Okay, that's not
that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Nothing so that's a decent number.
Yeah, right.
Brilliant, that, mate. Nice one.
Yeah. It's good, and it's at least that's. To be totally honest with you, I'd probably prefer something like that than like 200,000, because then I'd start getting worried. Like, it's just too much. I don't know. You know what I'm getting at? Like, it might start becoming. Who knows what can happen when you have that many people? But I think that's awesome that you got like a nice solid group. 10,000 people. That's nothing to sneeze at. That's pretty fucking cool, man. I'd be proud of that. Having like a little. It's like a little kind of underground type thing going on in a sense. Yeah. That's pretty fucking cool, man.
That's it. Yeah. It's not big enough to probably be on the in the crosshairs.
Exactly. That's what I was. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah,
or hasn't gotten infiltrated by like fucktards trying to like actually ruin the message or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Probably hasn't been infiltrated from the Instagram and Twitter propaganda accounts yet.
Yeah. Not yet.
Not quite. It's brilliant how you've got that. You've got it from nothing, Brandon. That's something. Really is, especially considering how things are now.
Yeah, well, this is it. Like, we can't rely on these big tech platforms. They're run by bad actors. They can't be trusted, and you can't speak freely on them. So I don't see any other alternative. We just have to create our own alternatives and use the platforms that are actually out there to service free speech and protect our basic rights.
Yes.
Yeah, said it any better, mate. Spot on.
What got you into, I guess, like what you're doing now? Like was there like what was the whole thing? I guess maybe that woke you up and got you like into doing all of this shit. Like what was the aha moment? Maybe.
Yeah, I definitely had an aha moment because many years ago now, I think it was far out, next year will be the 20th year, so it must be 19 years ago, my brother came home from school one day, my younger brother, and he'd been listening to a talk. There was a young fella who was like 25 at the time, came in to give a talk about business and entrepreneurialism and what have you. And this guy kept talking off topic and going off onto this other subject about this book that he'd read that was amazing and how it was so mind-blowing. And it was called The Holographic Universe, which you guys have probably heard of. And it's quite a widely known book. And so my brother comes home and he goes, yeah, I don't know why, I just sort of feel like this could be up your alley, maybe you want to check it out. And I thought, that could be up my alley. I'll just put that on the back burner. I put it in the back of my mind, and it, sat there for like 6 months. And then eventually, that sort of curiosity finally got to me, and I went and found a copy of this book and read it, and it just absolutely blew my mind wide open. And it was that aha moment of, oh wow, I don't know shit about anything. Like all my ideas that have been indoctrinated into me about how life works and what reality is and all this stuff is absolute nonsense. And that was the curiosity trigger that got me going. Excuse me.
So was that like sort of one of the books? What was a bit like your, so to speak, Brendan, an awakening for you, in a way?
Oh yeah, hugely, and it opened the door for me to go down that road of having mystical experiences and having altered states of consciousness where I could say, oh well, now I understand that the basic premise of the theory of the book is actually true, and I know that from personal experience. And then when you have that switch flicked and the curiosity comes in, it's pretty much game over. Like my life was taken over by the whatever you call this path at that point.
Yeah, and I mean, mate, your content alone, I'm particularly impressed with your commitment to like almost like in the injectomania side of things, like with viruses like monkeypox, COVID, etc. That for you to like to maintain, it's like you're almost committed to that side of things, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Sometimes I struggle to hear you, Lee, but I think so.
Oh, sorry, mate.
You're right. I'm 100% committed. Like I don't know any other way to live at this point. I've got it's like I've got no other useful skills other than being.
It's impressive, mate. It's very impressive.
Try to be educational.
Yeah.
Where are you
like
from again,
mate.
Brendan? I forgot. Sorry, real quick.
Sorry, brother, say again.
Where are you from again as well?
Originally Australia. I'm in Mexico now.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Traitor.
Yeah.
I was joking.
What made you do that move? If you don't mind me asking.
Well, Australia's really gone down the toilet in the convent era, so yeah.
I was wondering if that was when and why. I was going to get to that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's it. That's why. Because like last year, we were just looking around at the situation that we were in, and just the complete insanity that took Australia over, and people were just so asleep. And just every other aspect of our life just kind of gave us no other option than to leave the country, really. And it was kind of a relief to get out of there, man, because Australia's like psychological atmosphere is very, very dense, very heavy, and really oppressive. Just in that sort of in that, if you're like sensitive to that kind of thing, like the psychic environment at all, you would have felt it. And it was like Australia and Canada are kind of like, neck and neck in terms of how fast can we, race to the bottom. So a lot of Aussies are leaving, a lot of Canadians are leaving, and a lot of us have ended up in Mexico as it happens.
That is so, it's funny how there's people going there to have a better, I guess, atmosphere of life, but then yet we're getting these people crossing the border into the United States saying it's so horrible they can't stay there.
Yeah, I mean, it's Mexico's weird. Like, there's real extremes in terms of first world, third world, and like people with money and people in poverty. And I think there's still a lot of like hardship here in Mexico. But you can have like, if you go out onto the main road there, you can see like a shanty constructed out of bits of rubbish, and then 100 meters away is like a mansion, and it's like that's the juxtaposition and the discrepancy there. Like there's really strong kind of like class division. So I think a lot of people feel like a lot of Mexicans feel like they've got a better chance at making a living, over the border sort of thing. So yeah.
No, that's even what you just said. I remember seeing that when I've gone to the DR. Like, if you go on any type of excursion and actually leave and see the rest of the country, there's times where you will see, like beautiful homes, gigantic pieces of property, and then 10 more minutes down the road, it literally looks like houses that if a hurricane came through, it'd be done.
Totally.
Yeah, that is why. Because I remember even at one point when I was thinking of like moving, because I want to move out of state, I had even told my wife, I was like, technically we could probably live like kings over in DR. It just depends if you want to go 10 minutes down the road and then be in a third world country. I said, but we could probably technically like do that, because it is such drastic there for sure too.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, it's interesting. Like, there's nothing you can do about it when you come here. It's just sort of like you just try to fit in with the people and respect the culture and the people. And I mean, they're awesome. Like, the Mexicans are the most hospitable, friendly people that I've probably come across so far. I mean, it's a very different atmosphere than Australia. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I had. And Lee knows that. Well, I don't know if Lee actually ever spoke to him. The Ghost Nuts podcast, dudes I was friends with, and they had a show back when I first came out. They were already around, I think, for like a year already. It was just a show that I got really close with them, and they had me on. That was like the first, I think, podcast I actually ever went on. And
yes, mate.
Yeah, they were from Australia, cool fucking dudes. But they were even saying like, one of them wanted to stop the show because they actually, and they did. They took a break. Because, like, I think part of the reason they even said it was like their podcast was just going on deaf ears. There was no fucking point because they said, by the way you looked at Australia, they said it is so fucked up. It is, like, totally, like they said, like, New World Order. Just fucking walking in. And people are just so acceptant of it.
Oh, yeah.
They were saying they said, and the crazy thing is there was a lot of, at one point, it almost seemed as if there was propaganda about Australia because there was a lot of things that were going around a while ago, and I had the Ghost Nuts dudes even telling me, like, yo, that shit's not happening. And then I swear to God, within 2 months from then, fucking one of them was like, yo, it's as bad as people were saying when it wasn't. They're like, it's really fucking weird. They're like, there was propaganda about what was going on, and now it's actually happening. To where they said they had fucking drones flying around. They had, like, out those brick pillars down certain streets to make sure you can't fucking go, drive. They were, like, literally, like, locking shit down. And they said, this is fucked up. They couldn't even get to the recording studio to do their shows if they wanted.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, that's right. And especially if they were living in Melbourne, like, Melbourne was just basically turned into a giant open-air prison. And just some of the most bizarre stuff that we've ever seen. Like, someone shot footage of hundreds of undercover cop cars, just like row after row after row in these city streets. And then, they all turn their sirens on simultaneously. And it's like they're going around trying to terrorize the neighborhood. And then there's another piece of footage with like hundreds of these black, tinted window SUVs driving around the corners in the streets. And it's like something very, very bizarre and very wrong is happening in Australia, especially Melbourne and Victoria. But it's like the psychology of the country is messed up because people are just so asleep. Like, we would be in town. Like, we didn't live in Melbourne or anywhere near it. We were up in New South Wales in a sort of semi-rural kind of area. And, they started putting the stickers on the windows, like, you've got to swipe in the QR code before you walk in the cafe and all this stuff. And we were just mind blown at how many people just mindlessly, they've got their phones out, 20 meters away from the building, and they're just like getting ready to scan in. And it's like, do you guys not see what's happening here? But they didn't.
Yeah, it's a bit much, isn't it?
Hardly anybody got it. It was amazing.
Yeah, it's like another level of manipulation.
It's just gone, a whole other level.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was in many ways it's a relief to be out. It sucks in some ways, obviously, but I think it's a better life for us at this point, anyway.
Damn. That's pretty serious. I had somebody want me to ask you, do you know who of Max Egan?
Yeah, I know Max.
Yeah, somebody was just wanted to know if you've heard of him or what you think of Max Egan. I don't even know who he is, but I guess he's from someone who left Australia, right?
Yeah, he came to Mexico too.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Did you know each other personally?
Say again?
Do you know each other personally, or?
Yeah, we've met
That's
Max.
pretty
We've
fucking cool.
We've interviewed him a couple of times back when we did a podcast many years ago. So yeah, he's a good dude. I like Max. He's dedicated to the cause and the fight, but he didn't want to stick around for the shit show in Australia either.
That's funny as fuck. What's the odds of that? Unless the person who
I
asked
have
already knew.
I have heard of Max. I've on a few shows. He's like comes across as one of those like a gift, a bit like almost like a Gary Wayne type of individual, and very knowledgeable.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
Nice, that's pretty cool. Oh, somebody says maybe he's I don't know, maybe you would know. He's in Acapulco. Is that where he is?
Yeah, last I heard, that's the case. Yeah, for sure.
Going loco.
Hey,
going loco.
Going loco in Acapulco. Yeah.
Sorry.
So now I know. you had mentioned prior about being into like paranormal stuff. What is what is it about the paranormal that I guess got you interested, or that you're trying to cover when you cover that type of stuff? Like me, I said to you, I'll give you an example just for myself. I said to you before, I've been getting into that. Well, and true crime, actually. I want to start having a little bit more of that on my show, because I think a lot of that can be occult associated. But the reason I cover the paranormal is because I think when it comes to magic and occultism, I think there is a big connection with actually the paranormal. So that's why I'm into it. So I was wondering, like, what got you to start covering something like that?
I think the reason, well, I guess in some ways, when you have the kind of experiences that I've had, it's like my first mystical experience was basically I was lying in bed one night and I just was waiting to go to sleep like any other night, except suddenly I was infinite consciousness, and there was no like transition, there was no meditation, there was no smelling salts or drugs involved. I was just suddenly infinite consciousness, and I had this like, that was the confirmation, well, the first confirmation of the holographic universe theory being, essentially correct. And from there, it's like, well, if infinity, infinite consciousness is your fundamental reference point, everything, basically anything's possible. And it's like, well, the paranormal fits into that now. It just, because everything is consciousness, that's the background for all phenomena, and everything is made from this consciousness. Essentially, we live in a dream. So what's possible in a dream? Well, I mean, pretty much anything you can dream, and everything's interconnected. So the paranormal phenomena all just fits into that very, very beautifully, and it helps illustrate that everything is connected, even though it doesn't always look like it. So, I mean, I'm just fascinated by that kind of phenomena and weird things, and I've had my share of weird stuff happen. So it's interesting, even as a mystic who's like, oh yeah, it's all an illusion or whatever, but it's still fun.
Oh yeah, even though it's still an illusion, that's a good way to put it. Wow. Yeah, I mean, even as a kid when I was younger, I mean, I've always had believed in the paranormal. So like, I always looked at it as like, I guess more as paranormal, of like, it's not normal and I don't understand what's doing it or what's going on. So that interests me a lot. And I was just like, ooh, what's that? And then as I got older, well, I guess I should say once I started getting into magic and had my experiences and this and that, I started looking at the paranormal completely different. And I was like, wait. And I was like, this stuff is all connected. I mean, I've even said, just taking the word paranormal and occult, I mean, they're almost saying the same exact thing. Like, one's like, paranormal is basically like, it's not normal and we don't understand what's going on. And then the occult is just the science that's hidden behind what people don't understand that's going on.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's like, they're almost, I mean, even the words themselves I could see being connected and interchangeable to an extent,
Totally. Like, yeah, paranormal subsumes magic, fits under the banner of paranormal because it's not supposed to happen. It's not supposed to be real. So yeah, they're absolutely in the same ballpark. And yeah, I mean, it's just an interesting area to go into, I mean, we could pick 1,000 different threads there, but yeah, there's really nothing paranormal in terms of, like, if you get rid of the conditioning and the bias that we are programmed with in terms of the materialistic so-called scientific paradigm, which is complete bullshit. It's not actually scientific in any real way. It's just a worldview that certain people have promoted, and generally it's become associated with a certain amount of prestige and influence and power and income, and the ability to retain your income generating ability, the ability to retain your job. So people go along with the narrative, the paradigm, and they stick with it even when they know that it's wrong. And we've got 100 years of psychical research in the modern era that shows that materialism as a foundational philosophy is completely wrong. And you can go far further back than that. And as soon as you realize that one so-called paranormal event is actually legitimate and real, you realize that materialism is bullshit, basically. It doesn't explain anything, and nobody's ever managed to explain how consciousness is generated by a material structure. Nobody's ever been able to create consciousness out of a material structure in an experiment. I mean, it doesn't, and we can't actually even find it. We can't localize it to a brain or a nervous system. Consciousness doesn't exist anywhere in particular. So there are some pretty fundamental problems with that whole paradigm.
Damn, okay. I didn't think that way. real quick, we have Raven Kiefer. He's somebody that comes on our show. Well, he does more with Lee, but I try to get him on as well with Lee, and I would love to have him on more often. Raven Kiefer, he said maybe after the show. I'm not going to wait until after the show in case I forget. You should mention he does cover a holographic humanitarian. I don't even know how to say that.
Humanitarian.
Yeah, humanitarian. He's another person who has another show. He said you may. He covers like esoteric traditions and science and a whole bunch of stuff. He said you might be interested in that. It might be stuff that you actually are interested in.
Cool.
Yeah.
So,
I can send you. I'll send you some of Raven's work over, Brendan. When we finish, mate, you'll find Raven is phenomenal. He is one of those very unique, talented individuals. He's a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, maybe one day we'll get all four of us on together and talk some crazy stuff.
Oh, he's incredible, Raven. He really is.
All right, hook me up.
So I love how you are looking at. I think pretty much we're both kind of looking at the paranormal the same. And I think maybe I'm wrong, or maybe it's just because I'm looking at it that way. I'm just coming across others that do. But I do feel like the paranormal is starting to pick up again. I mean, just recently in the last year or two, we've had Ghost Hunters come back. Then we've had the other guy who's not on Ghost Hunters bring his show back. Nick Roth is now back, I think, doing his own thing from Ghost Adventures. We have had a lot of paranormal. Now, not saying those shows are the best to go off of what paranormal is, but it's coming out a lot more, and I think it's getting it's kind of getting a resurge as well as the UFO community, but which I think is a whole other thing in itself. But I do think there's kind of like the paranormal is getting kicked up again, and I think there's a lot of people that I'm coming across that are looking at it from a completely different view, kind of like us. Where I think they're starting to think maybe it's a little bit more than just the spirit of some dead person stuck in a loop. Why is that happening? How does that happen? What makes that happen? I think people are starting to look into that, and I think it's getting a little bit deeper when it comes to paranormal. My opinion. I don't know. Do you think you see it coming happening that way, or
like a resurgence of the paranormal? Yeah. I mean, I think it's happening with a bunch of stuff at the same time, and the interest. Like we've got all these movies now that are constantly putting paranormal in our faces, as well as gods and heroes and demons and angels and all of this stuff, like all this content from the collective unconscious. And at the same time, we've had the breakdown of the authority of mainstream, like Judeo-Christian religion. So now we don't have to feel like everything has to fall into this like stupid dichotomy of, oh, well, it's either the devil or it's, Jesus or some rubbish like that. It's like we can actually look at this rationally and in terms of evidence and assess it logically. And we don't need to also adhere to the theology of materialism either. And that's as people break away from both of those extreme polarities, we are able to have a more and more useful and intelligent kind of exchange of information. So it's definitely emerging more and more. Yeah, there's momentum behind it for sure at this point.
It's funny how you even said polarities, and as people move close, like I really do think, and I think it's gotten better since then. For multiple reasons. I think people even on the left are realizing that they were sold bullshit, and I think people on the right are realizing they got sold a bunch of bullshit as well. But like from 2020 and even a little bit earlier, it was extremely polarized. At least in the United States, for sure. You had people, two extremes on each side. And I think as humans start to kind of come closer to more of the middle or not be so extreme, I think that is when people can have more of better ideas and start trying to figure things out together and deeper instead of saying, I know and you're wrong. You know what I'm saying? So I think maybe, who knows, maybe that has something to do with it too.
Well, that's totally it, man. And, like it's sort of like what you're saying. When people have that, when they're in one camp and they identify as I'm a liberal or I'm a Christian or whatever, then what they're doing is they've adhered to an ideology. They've got a script in their mind that tells them, okay, if this happens, you say this. If this happens, you say that. And so they've got this formula such that they don't need to actually think anymore. So it actually, when you are in that space, you're not thinking anymore. You're just reacting, and you're just regurgitating what you've been essentially programmed or self-programmed to say when a certain trigger emerges or a certain stimulus emerges. You go, oh well, that's the devil. Oh, that's like it's just programming, and you're not actually thinking and assessing things in an intelligent way. It's unfortunately it's the exact opposite of an intelligent response, and I think more and more people are starting to see that and break away from the programming. And it's very entrenched, like particularly the religious side of it. That more so than the materialism. You can't shut down the soul, so to speak. That's always trying to emerge. The unconscious is always trying to emerge, and as much as materialism's tried to stifle it, and Christianity in the West has done its best to distort and stifle it, you can never really make it go away. And people are experiencing a broader range, I think, of phenomena in their lives now, and they don't have the mental filters that we used to have that made it so simplistic to say, oh, well, it's just this, it's just that. It's like, oh, no, what's actually happening here? This is quite strange. This doesn't fit into my pre-established categories. So let's think about it. Let's talk about it. And if we move in that direction, we're making some progress.
Yeah, evidently.
I would even say, what I've noticed is a little different too. And well, I thought it was a horrible problem. I used to get on about it all the time, even when I first started my podcast. And I think I've even noticed the difference with that. Mimetic warfare or propaganda. I think at one point it was so bad, like around 2020 and earlier than that, like whenever something horrible happened, or it didn't even have to be real. People were literally like photoshopping, like taking headlines from a news article, but then taking the rest of it and the pictures and something else and adding them together and putting it out. And it looks horrific. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, got to screenshot that and share it. Horrible. Screenshot, share. That's all people were doing on Instagram. Never like, let me actually go check and make sure this is real. Because like the example I'm using, I can't even remember what it was, but to me, I was just like, holy shit, this is wild. And I almost caught myself doing the same thing. I was like, you know what? Let me check to make sure this is even legit. Because I can see the newspaper and I can see the headline. And I went to it and realized the headline was completely different than the bottom. And I was like, this is fucking propaganda now at this point, and people are taking it as truth.
It's hilarious, man. There was a classic example. You've probably seen it not that long ago. And it was to do with Ukraine, and there was a meme that it was a photo, but manipulated and turned into a meme that was circulated by a lot of people. And it had a picture of, it was like someone driving down a road, and on the side of the road was like this crashed vehicle from Star Wars. And this is supposed to be a scene out of the Ukraine. Like, come on.
Star Wars. Bit of reality.
Oh man, that's funny. Yeah, I've even seen this is something that me and Lux even covered on the Occult Rejects. We only did one episode. It was on the Azov battalion that's over in Ukraine. And like if you even like looked into them at all, I mean, they're very outspoken. They have their own site, they have their own YouTube, fucking Wikipedia. They don't deny being like an alt-right, or far-right neo-Nazis. They don't deny that at all. They use the symbolism, the sigils. And yet, like, we'll go on, like, you can see on CNN and Fox and I forgot one other news station. There was at least 3 that I've seen that when they're showing us the footage from over there, it says it's supplied by Azov. We'll even have Azov.com or whatever the fuck their site is on the corner of it too. And I'm like, we're being shown like shit that's probably fucking fake.
Yeah.
On the news.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's coming from Nazis.
I know, right? It's like, here's the latest update from your favorite Nazis. It's like
ironic.
Fuck me. I mean, yeah, it's crazy. But the whole news media thing, like, it amazes me that people still, like, some people, obviously you guys get it, but a lot of people out there still don't understand the purpose of the media. It's like, it is just mass mind control. That's all it is. It's the purpose of the media is not to give you information. It's to manipulate you into believing certain things and performing certain behaviors that service the elite. And that's it.
Yeah.
The whole thing's.
I mean, I wonder how long it's gonna carry on for.
No, I mean, yeah. It amazes me. Some people still watch it. Apparently, I'm so out of that group.
Yeah.
That's,
Fortunately,
But it sucks in Australia that the government keeps subsidizing these dying mainstream channels, and they're sort of like these zombie entities. They're dead, but they're undead. They're still going.
it's funny that you said that, because I was even thinking, I was like there must be a fuck ton of people that still like eat up all that bullshit for it to be like, for society to be the way it is. It has to be listening to the fucking news. And like, I don't know. It's like, I guess like you see like maybe the conspiracy community or the truther community, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Like, it does seem to be getting bigger, but it's just like, damn, there's still so many fucking people that must take that shit as the fucking gospel, to where everybody's still going along with the bullshit. It's actually pretty fucking like, holy fuck.
It's frightening, isn't it, mate?
Yeah.
It really is frightening. I hardly can believe any part of it. It's frightening.
It's funny. They've just had our minds in that vice for so long. People are just like that false reality. It doesn't matter if you add another layer of bullshit on top, because everything else they believe is nonsense. So it kind of makes sense,
I mean, even like some stuff that I see happening, it's like, oh, well, I could use like the news, and I could even use QAnon for the same fucking thing. QAnon, I mean, I don't know what you thought about it, Brendan. I got into it, but then I was real quick to realize, like, just from a magician standpoint, I'm like, this ain't kosher.
Yeah.
This is you got gematria, you just got dates that are constantly changing. I mean, there was a whole lot of just like, to me, like occultism, which is why it caught my eye, is because I did see occultism in it, and I was like, oh, these are the good guys, but yet. But yet all this other shit, I just started noticing this doesn't make any sense, and it's a fucking psyop. Yeah. So like you have like that, but then like, fucking basically like constantly like fucking up and basically proving that it's wrong, because you'll have these dates, these things, nothing ever of it happens. And then so basically they're showing you straight up this is bullshit. And now you have literally kind of on the TV and the media, especially with COVID-19 now, the things that have changed just in the last month or two actually, or like even public opinion that's being even played on like liberal news, stuff that science, now is coming out and saying, they're actually totally going against things that they said 2 years ago. They're totally admitting we fucked up and this was actually completely wrong. You believe it or not, there is no more, and I'm not trying to promote him. I do listen to his show. It's actually weird. I don't know why. Timcast, for some reason, I do listen to his shit. I don't think he's too far out there with the conspiracy stuff. And basically, I listen to him because it's like I want to hear what kind of propaganda is going on in the news, because he covers the news. You know what I'm saying?
Who's that, mate? Did you say that? Timcast, did you say that?
Yeah. And he was showing the drastic differences that basically happened overnight with YouTube rules. He went back on the Wayback Machine, copied the fucking shit, then used the ones from what's the standards are today, and ran it through like some text match app. You can say whatever the fuck you want about masks now on YouTube. There is no fucking thing against fucking masks. So many things that you used to not be able to say about COVID-19 now has been completely fucking removed. To the point to where I think you're actually allowed to say it probably doesn't help. I almost think that was one of the things that it actually vaccinates you from COVID-19 is gone. All this shit just disappears now. Because it was a fucking lie and it was wrong.
Yeah. But I think that they, I get the impression that it's like, well, we've basically, screwed them in the way that we want, and we've got most of what we wanted, we've achieved. So, we can kind of like relax on this a bit, like the damage has been done kind of thing. We've got millions and millions of people who've gone and taken the jab. They can't untake it. You can't get it out of your system as far as, that technology, the nanotech and whatever. So it's like, we've got them now. And so we can say that it's a lie, and it's sort of too late. You can't backtrack, you can't undo things. And I've noticed the same stuff, man. Like the rules have all changed. You're not getting all the pop-up notifications on like Instagram and whatever if you use certain words, because certain words were flagged to the nth degree for ages.
Yeah.
Accounts were being taken down left, right, and center. I had friends who were dropping like flies off of Instagram, and I'm only there because I stopped. I would change keywords and censor myself so that I didn't get picked up. And I still got picked up. They send the bot back months back in your old posts, looking at the old shit, and then you're like, oh, no, I've got a 30-day ban or whatever.
It's like the short of someone doing it.
Yeah, it's sort of like, it could be interpreted as a positive thing, I suppose. Like that, it's like, oh well, they've relaxed the censorship a little bit, I suppose. But to me, I'm a bit more cynical. I'm like, well, that's just them loosening the reins a little bit because the damage has been done and they've moved on to the next thing, Yeah.
That makes me think now, like if people like myself, the first YouTube channel I had, we had gotten taken down real quick because we mentioned Comet Ping Pong. All right, so that, James, whatever.
Comet Ping Pong.
Yeah, we covered that, and that was bullying, totally wiped out and done. Not one strike or nothing. But now since I've had this other one, no, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. The strike I had before that, I had one strike before that, and it was because I had Josh Monday on, and he mentioned COVID-19 a little bit. Strike. Then completely taken down for James Alefantis, and now since we've had this new one, I've gotten 2 strikes since then. Well, one was a warning, and then one was a strike. And they have literally only been because of that, of COVID-19. And now it's like, can I go back now and say, well, maybe since the rules have changed because you realize this shit was wrong, should that be removed? Because maybe what I was saying is actually completely fine with the rules now. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Should that be taken away? Because you even realize now that maybe I wasn't wrong for saying what I was saying.
Yeah, totally. You know what? They don't. They have problems with freedom of speech on certain things. Like you can't talk about the the pedo stuff freely. You can't talk about the Cooties 19 stuff freely. But I've had someone recently create a doppelganger fake account of mine, and they have been messaging people. They've been messaging like everybody who is connected to me, like it's like an Olympic event, and they're hitting them up for like readings. They want to charge them money, and people are reporting this account like day in and day out, day in, day out. And you know what they told them? They told them that whoever this is not violating any community standards, so it's fine.
You know what? Maybe your shit is probably. I guess maybe because your shit isn't technically copyrighted. I don't know how that would work. Like, that's weird.
It's like
that's fucking bizarre.
Even if the rules aren't like in place for that kind of thing, which I would have thought they would be, it's just like ethically you should have a problem with that, but they don't. It's like this is the type of people you're dealing with.
Yeah. Oh yeah. See, that was that's what it was. When I originally had my NY Patriot YouTube, I lost that because of the only strike I got was COVID-19, and then the way I got done with that is because I covered the Ninth Gate with Sean McCann, and we were showing too much of the movie. And we got banned for that. But somebody else showing your whole shit and making a fake account is okay.
That's fine.
Tell me how this shit isn't fucked up.
I don't know. You can't make it up. I had a Hillary Clinton video. It was about the the emails on the laptop. I had that 2 years ago. It got 10,000 views, and then they pulled it down. It's like, okay, yep, all right. I'm not allowed to talk about that either. But yeah, my account's still there somehow. I'm not sure how, but it is.
Yeah, even Symbolic Studies just said he's out of imposter accounts too. So
yeah,
I guess
happening a lot.
Yeah, I guess. Maybe that means you hit it big. I don't know. Maybe that means you're doing something right. I thought I had. A couple of days ago, Sonic Labor, shout out to Sonic Labor. I could be even fucking up that name for all I know. He comes in a lot on my live sometimes where he comments. He watches shit on YouTube. He's a listener of ours. He had hit me up and asked me if he could share the interview that the Occult Rejects did with Aeon Byte on his YouTube, and I was just like, holy fuck, sure. I was like, thanks, man. He asked and he's a listener. I was just like, holy fuck, somebody else wants to repost my shit. But you guys got total fake fucking accounts trying to scam people. I got to step my game up, I guess.
I'll tell you what, mate. I would love to listen to your episode with Sean McCann on Ninth Gate.
Oh yeah, there was a 3-part series. You just have to look it up on my podcast. Yeah, it was really good. That fucker. we spent a lot of time with that. It was about 5 hours to do the show, and we did a dry run a couple of days or a week prior. So basically, it was like 10 hours. Besides us watching the show and covering shit and writing stuff
brilliant,
down.
Mate.
That was a lot of work actually to do that series.
It's top film that as well.
Yeah, bugged out for sure.
Tell us, give me, what is that? What are you covering that one? Just quick.
A lot of the symbolism, trying to explain, I guess, from our point of views of like what a lot of, I guess, like those illustrations kind of were. Stuff going on in the show that might have represented like kind of what was going on in the illustrations, and like there was times where I showed how like the tarot was even going along with certain things happening in the show. It was pretty good. Like me and Sean, I love having Sean on because he actually, in my opinion, is better at certain things when it comes to symbolism than me. He's very good at like finding like actual shit that's blatant that for some reason I don't fucking see. You know what I'm saying? But then I'm like really good at taking like the archetypes or seeing shit that match up with the Kabbalah tree of life to show like a story or archetypes that are just being retold on the screen. So I thought it was a really good series because we both kind of looked at it in different ways but almost found the same shit. Like it was a good series.
That sounds really interesting, man.
Yeah. But it was really fun.
He's brilliant, Sean. He really is.
Yeah, he's a good dude. Really, I'd consider him probably like Yuli. He was like a real friend that I've actually like made doing this.
Oh, thanks, mate.
Yeah, well,
yeah, I've got.
It's not. I don't
Sean.
say that about too many people. So.
Thanks, mate.
I hope you like him.
You're
going to show with him, so.
I've got a show with Sean coming up, which I cannot wait. He's another one of those rare individuals, and he does like to go deep. I mean, I did the circumcision episode with Sean, and I mean, I knew a little bit about it, but he went so deep.
Yeah, that was kind of like a controversial topic, and I was like, "Fuck it, come on my show and cover it," because I do kind of, I do unfortunately do agree with a lot of the shit he was saying. And looking back at it, it does seem. That whole thing just
it's a whole other topic. Truth hurts, as they say.
Oh, people it definitely hurts. Yeah, I'm sure it hurts. I mean, I don't remember it, but I'm sure it hurt.
I'm with you, man.
So, get back to Brendan. Enough of Sean. It's my boy, but Brendan's the guest.
I like him already.
Yeah. So I never even heard his stuff, but I like him already. All right, so we mentioned the paranormal and the other stuff. You're kind of like into like consciousness and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. I mean, is
that more of what this book is on? I forgot. You already mentioned it before, but
yeah, I mean that first book, anyways, it's all paranormal consciousness, nature of reality. Esoteric science, bringing the two worlds together because, it's important that I thought it was important anyway, that people understand that the opposition between science and what we might call spiritual phenomena is completely illusory. Like modern science in the 21st century actually is validating a lot of the esoteric stuff that we've been interested in for decades.
There's been so much stuff that me and Lux have even showed like little things here and there where we show like how like science and then like occultism, even matching numbers and symbols and, things that you'll see like pieces of art or depictions of like an occult idea, how it's like, like I'm seeing the same shit. Like when I look at the Gateway documents and see their ideas of wormholes and the Taurus and all this other shit, it's like, well, that's what people depict chakras to look like. That almost looks like an apple. These fucking waves and lines look like Aquarius, but yet it's used over here in science. You start seeing a lot of fucking weird shit. Yeah. And to me, I do think and this is a question I wanted to ask you too, from after I've had certain experiences, I started to, I guess because of that, started seeing a lot more of this shit and could see how science and occultism do, I think, overlap if you've had certain experiences and understand what happened. From your experience, because like you said before, you obviously had, to me, that would be a life-changing experience. My experiences were life-changing. Basically what I wanted to ask is, like, did that change, like, life for you for everything? Like, did you look at the world completely different than you did prior to those experiences?
Oh, 100%, man. Absolutely. Same as same as you, no doubt. Like when you see certain things, like there are certain fundamentals that change, and you can't unsee that. And it's like your lens that you now witness life through is completely different. Like the difference between someone who is in a materialistic paradigm, for example, versus where I'm standing, it's night and day. And there are things that when you adopt a belief system, right, like you guys would know, it acts as a filter for your perception. So if you're a materialist, you are unconsciously filtering out every piece of data that doesn't support the materialist worldview that you hold. That's what your brain is doing unconsciously. So we got this enormous subconscious power in the brain that does this automatically for us. And then if you change your belief system, then what has to happen in order to support that belief system is the unconscious filtering system changes to accommodate the new worldview. And you know that is radically, and it's not that you're hallucinating things that aren't there. It's more like, and that does happen, obviously. That does happen too. But for people like us who maybe came out of more of a materialistic Western kind of worldview into a more holistic, integral, connected worldview, like a more mystical, so-called mystical worldview, now we're seeing shit that we were filtering out before, and it's like, oh, like now you can actually, and it changes the way you experience life as well, like in an objective way, not just an internal mental way. Like you will start to have experiences that actually were not possible when you held that other belief, that limiting belief system, right? So I started having, like, I was reading that book, The Holographic Universe. I was sitting in my folks' home. This is, going back 19 years. I was reading this section on synchronicity. And it was about the activist Rosa Parks, who was involved in the whole Montgomery bus boycott, decades ago. And she was pivotal in the whole sort of, equal rights movement and that kind of thing. And as I was reading this section about synchronicity and the way that the external can sync up with the internal world, and I'm reading Rosa Parks, the radio in the background, suddenly the guys on the radio show start talking about Rosa Parks. And I'm like, whoa, whoa. It's a section about synchronicity. And then I have this Rosa Parks synchronicity happening so it's like Inception, synchronicity inside synchronicity. So this kind of shit starts happening, and you can't, unless you really want to put your mind back in the box, it's game over. You will have a very different experience of life, and the way that you approach it, your attitude towards it is completely different. Like when you're in that box, it's like the Western model of living is you go to school and then you go to college and then you get your job and then you stay there for 50 years until you start decomposing, and then you get the gold watch and you get the fucking retirement and insurance.
Decomposing.
All that shit. And then that's not possible to adhere to that if you suddenly have that like mystical activation and awakening, and you're like, oh, this is like we're in a dream here. Wow, what's possible? What's possible in this dream world here? Like, why would I live like that in such a limited way when basically infinite possibility is here at my doorstep?
Got a point there, mate.
Yeah, I'd say like when I've had, some experiences that were, to me just was, I was not here anymore. The experiences that I've had then, it's like almost like you can't really put it in words. And then when you come back here, you're just like, why the fuck, like, does this even exist, or is this a possibility? And I even think, like, just in that, like, for me, it just, you start looking at the world and being like, well, like, what's really that important? And two, it's just like, when like, in my opinion, when something that I just experienced might be a possibility once I'm not here anymore, how much does all this other little bullshit really matter? It's like, for me, like, I can say it's, well, one, I think the lack of materialism helped me have these experiences, but after the fact, I think it made it even more, or the lack of, like, needing to be of this world, I guess, as weird as that sounds too. I think, because I put it this way. If, I a lot of times I say, sometimes I think this might be hell, already. But it's like, if what I experienced was a bit of heaven, like dying and leaving here, like, what's the problem with that? I'm like, it's not all as bad as I thought it was.
Yeah, man. So what you had an NDE, did you?
Well, with magic, I mean, in my opinion, with certain things in magic, with the astral projection, like, you're kind of almost like detaching your soul from your body. I think when you get to, like, full magic, I think you've kind of removed your soul from your body and gone somewhere else. That's the only thing I can get out of the experience that I've had and other things that have come up. So I mean, that's what I mean, I wouldn't consider it an NDE, but maybe some people would. I don't know, but
Yeah, man. I mean, there's a fine line between the two. Like sometimes, some people have like near-death experiences in total waking, healthy consciousness. Like you don't even have to be physically damaged or traumatized. So yeah, there's a fine line. Like people can go. You know, if you've probably read like Robert Monroe's stuff, and you know he was a very deep OBE
Gateway
guy.
Project, yeah.
Yeah, and he, you know, people like that figure out how to go deeper and deeper into these alternate or deeper realities, and it's like, yeah, I mean, effectively, they are essentially dying. It's just that the physical is left intact, so they can come back to it and reanimate it. But from all accounts, from all accounts, man, dying is like the greatest experience that anybody's ever had.
I mean, all right, yeah, you basically said how I think it works. Yes, I do actually think that your spirit leaves the body, and it's just you can come back. It will stay intact to come back, and I do think it could be fucking. It might be 10 seconds out of the body, but feels like fucking the whole experience. That was like, you know, had no time. It's hard to explain. That felt like forever. It could literally, for all we know, be fucking seconds here. You know what I'm saying?
Totally, man.
So, yeah, that's probably the best way I would really explain it. Just most people, I don't think, look at it that way. So you saying it, that was great. Hearing somebody else say the same exact thing that I think.
Yeah, yeah. And there's a lot of like people try to reduce it down to some kind of physical explanation, like a chemical explanation or whatever. But it doesn't. If you've done your homework, that doesn't work. You can see that there are experiences people have that don't fit that model at all, and they're the most compelling ones because they're the ones that show us what might actually be possible and what we really are. Like fundamentally, what we actually really are is that field of consciousness, that field of possibility. So, you know, when you have that realization, you know, it's game over. You can't play in that tiny little sandpit anymore.
Yeah.
No, I often say I think we're just like, you know, spirit or whatever, and stuck in a flush suit.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
That's somehow we got stuck in this raw deal over here.
Stitched up.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
So have you had have you had like astral projection and stuff like that, or like what kind of what would you consider these experiences that you had? What would you consider?
I've done like more. I'm more of a like I don't know how to put it really, but for me, I've had more experiences that are like just vastly expanded awareness. Like I've had I used to meditate back in my early 20s, which I haven't done since then, by the way. So that if you're not meditating, you're kind of limiting your possibilities as far as those experiences go. But, you know, for me, it was like, okay, you know, you're going deep into this very, very expanded sense of being. And it's like, you know, one of them was very, very tangible, very palpable. I was sitting there and I could feel, and it's hard to explain this to people because it sounds ludicrous, but I could feel the presence of these other galaxies, like actually physically flowing through me. Like I was that vastly expanded. And I
often say that I get the same feeling where it's almost like I feel myself spread out and like become just part of everything. It's fucking wild.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, that's the kind of thing I'm talking about, man. It's like where your mind is infinitely far away, but it's also here. It's infinitely expanded. And you're like, well, I'm everywhere. I exist everywhere. There's nowhere that I'm not. And that's hard for the mind to kind of wrap itself around sometimes. Like if you haven't had that experience, it's sort of like, what?
Yeah, well, I think, and the crazy thing is, sorry, Lee, just real quick, is like during the moment,
it's okay, mate.
It's the most probably beautiful experience. But then when you come back into this world, for you to try to wrap your mind around what the fuck just happened, that's where it can get like a little dangerous, I think, too.
Yeah. Yeah. You come back into the realm of like belief systems and interpretation and all that human baggage that we've got going on for, you know, thousands of years. And it's like, yeah, people don't always do very well with it. I've seen a lot of people in the last few years having, you know, transitioned from being in the, I don't know what to call it, like the kind of, I don't know, new agey kind of community realm. And they transition back into being like born again Christians. And I think that that's part of the difficulty with coping with an expanded awareness is that it doesn't simplify things. It makes them more complex in some ways, unless maybe you go far enough with it. Like if you go to the nth degree and you're like, oh, I'm infinity and I can anchor that in myself because I've been there and I've experienced it tangibly. But a lot of people don't sort of get there. They kind of go halfway into all the sort of woo-woo and the astral stuff and the fun stuff, but they don't anchor the identity properly, and the ego is kind of left adrift in this like sea of real uncertainty and possibility, and oh, isn't this kind of intimidating? And then it's like, well, something in the unconscious goes, hang on a minute, like we're not coping very well with this. Let's come back to something simpler that we can get our heads around and stabilize ourselves with. And then you see people like, going and being born again and whatever. Not knocking it, but it's an interesting phenomenon, coping with, because we're all trying to cope with existing in infinity. And that's, I've found it, I've grappled with that for a long time. Like, this is, if you think about it, it can be quite an intimidating idea that we are actually surviving in infinity. And it's like, well, what happens when the body stops working? If infinity is the container that we're working with, what are the possibilities? What happens? It's probably very appealing to go into a much more simplistic belief system and just go, oh, well, it's all right. I'll just go to heaven and hang out with Jesus, this kind of thing. But some of us don't have that option.
No,
like from your own experiences, like meditation, how long does it take somebody who has never done it before to get to a level where you would say you're comfortable and you've achieved what you set out to achieve? Or would that vary?
I would say, how long is a piece of string?
Yeah.
I think that could also depend on the people too. Like, I think some people just, can meditate better and easier and quiet their mind.
It's a lot of people, like they start and then they quit because they go, oh, well, this is really hard. My mind's jumping around everywhere. And it's like, that's called being human. And that's why we practice this shit, because
of that reason.
this is it. So yeah, it's not easy, but most of the things in life that are worth doing and getting results in aren't easy. So
yeah,
what are you going to do? Like,
when you used to, well, maybe even now it might still apply, but prior in the past, when you used to have these experiences from meditating, or if you have them now without meditating, was there any specific like feelings or visuals that you would get commonly with these experiences? Was there anything like prior to you feeling like you're spread out everywhere? Was there any like visuals or feelings that you would always kind of have in your mind's eye or feel in your body?
No,
Okay.
There wasn't really a pattern to it. No. And there was no real transition either. It was like, it's like, just like boom, and then you're there.
That's fucking wild. Wow. See, that's what I'm saying. There's a difference with people. Some people could take, years and years and years to get to that, and some people, no.
It's hit and miss though. Like, even for me, like, I only meditated on a regular basis for like 2 years, and I got progressively better at putting myself into that state. But to be able to have those types of experiences and have them be controlled and sustained is a whole other thing. Like that, I wouldn't say I mastered that at all. It was just, I had some good ones along the way, but it varied.
Yeah. How often did you meditate, Brendan?
Good question. At the time, you're testing my memory, but I'd say probably about 4 times a week, roughly.
4 times a week.
But I also went for a while. I was going to a spiritualist church that was one of the local ones, and I found that I would go to their. They had a group on a Thursday. I think it was a Thursday night, and it was like a trance meditation group. And that's, watching people trance and do like channeling or whatever is kind of its own interesting thing. But I went there to do my own thing and meditate there. But I found that the energy of the group actually accelerates you. It actually helps you to move through that progression faster than doing it on your own.
Right, interesting.
Yeah. So, even though my goal wasn't necessarily to be a channeler, it still helped. Yeah. It just sped up that process of, because I wanted to be clairvoyant at the time. I was like, I want to be able to see those other like energies and dimensions and things, and definitely helped move me in that direction.
So like having that additional support helped you get through. Yeah, right.
Totally.
Yeah, that's something I've even noticed with my own self. Like, a while back when I used to practice ceremonial magic a lot, I meditated constantly because it was like, they always tell you to just do that regardless. And, for years I think maybe I'd take one or 2 days a week off, at least one though. But I would normally meditate like at least twice a day and like anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes at a time. I did that for a while. And if I was doing like ceremonies or rituals, I would do it as well, with that. And I realized after the fact that with all those, when I started having experiences, it would just it was happening just from meditating itself. And like I can still like pretty much bring myself to those experiences now just from meditating and not doing all that other crap too. So
would you not even need to build it up, mate? Would you just like be almost instantly?
Well, I could say since I've had experiences, I can get myself there a lot faster than I used to.
Right.
I don't need all that other stuff that I used to. So, like, what I'm getting at is, like, was meditation the thing itself? And is that what helped me practicing and being so much into it? Is that what really helped speed up the other shit? It's hard to explain. But I think, like, what I'm getting at is that, like, meditation was, like, the underlying factor,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder why there's so many people. There seems to be an increase people mentioning meditation. And,
I see that too, man. I think it's we've hit like this critical mass kind of stage of introspectiveness and like how do you say, like a self-awareness that is now kind of accelerating, and we're more and more willing to look at ourselves in that more abstract way and go like, if you go back 10,000 years, we didn't actually even have the neurological capacity to visualize an analog version of ourselves. Like, we wake up in the morning and go, maybe I'll go and walk down the street and get some, do my shopping and bring some shit home. And then, or maybe I'll take the dog for a walk. We can imagine ourselves doing all this stuff. But 10,000 years ago, we didn't even have that capacity and it didn't develop until roughly, say, 1500 BC. It started to really kick off. Obviously, it's approximate because, you're talking about multiple different cultures around the world having this transition.
Yeah.
But now that capacity for self-reflection is being like consciously, intentionally manipulated or exploited, and so it's accelerating now.
Yeah.
I think so, or I hope so at least.
We need it badly.
Yeah. I mean, I'll even say it. I mean, you even see, I think, things that were like kind of considered, gospel even in the past by other, not say, I guess, creators or whatever, kind of even being either expanded on or corrected. It even, so I don't think everybody's like, I think people are starting to at least look into what their beliefs were. You know what I'm saying? Like they're starting to at least question that, or maybe double check it, or does it really make any sense? Or did it just sound nice at the time?
Yeah, man. You're right.
Yeah.
100%. I think we're going through a phase now where like there is a transition. There's like a shift. People talk about the shift of the ages. We're going from this age into the next age, and part of that breakdown is that everything breaks down. Like all our categories, all our belief systems now start to crumble. They start to become open to questioning. And then at the same time as that, you have the opposite trend in some circles where people push in the complete opposite direction as like a compensation mechanism, where they go even more hardcore into like more fundamentalist, kind of like closing themselves down and that type of thing. But the trend is more, I think, in the more opening up, the breaking down, so that we can actually go deeper and understand things in a more sophisticated way than we have so far.
Yeah. You know what's wild is that if you take the idea of the Aeon of Horus that DOTO goes by, the idea of the Aeon of Horus that they believe that we're in, the rebellious child part of Horus would actually fit that whole thing. It's basically like the kid is like, all right, my fucking parents have lied to me about the world. They told me there was fucking Santa Claus. They told me this. Told me all this fucking fuckery bullshit because they just wanted to protect me and encroached on my will, and I'm saying fuck you to everything that has done that to me now and doing my own thing. That's all I hate to say, but those theories do kind of coincide with what's going on in a way.
Totally, brother.
Oh, definitely do, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, you put it well. Excuse me.
Especially considering the amount of bullshit they've fed us over years from being kids, and they're still trying it now.
Yeah. So, I mean, and then some, I said parents, but I mean school, the news, politics, everything's just feeding you fucking bullshit,
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Nice. Was there anything, Lee? Was there anything you wanted to? Because I know I kept on going on a lot, and I was like, "Fuck, this is Lee's show." I mean, he might have had questions honest, for the guy. I'm sorry.
No, mate. It's you covered more than what I had jotted down anyway, brilliantly.
I feel like it's like, I don't know if people realize. I can't remember if you said it earlier, Patriot, but. NY Patriot wasn't actually, he didn't expect to even make this call. So he knew nothing about me whatsoever. I think he's done a fucking awesome job.
I mean, like,
well, you're speaking my style, so I was like, oh fuck, this is real easy now. This is fun.
we've covered we've had a few guests past couple of months where we've had, and they've discussed like astral projection, which that I was fascinated with that. Astral projection is just it's one of those subjects what's just fucking, it just sounds incredible, but for people to actually have the ability to astral project, that's something else.
Everyone's got it, man. Everyone does it when they're sleeping at night.
I've thought that
we have these like alternate levels of the psyche, different copies of the mind that they go and do their own thing, and we just have a memory block around that.
You know what? I think it's great that you mentioned dreaming, because like I've even thought of that recently. I'm like, one of the biggest fucking things that we don't question more and wonder more about is what the fuck is going on when we fall asleep. Like, yo, for real. Like, if you really think about that, we've just accepted, like, oh, your brain's just doing funny shit and just discarding shit. Oh, okay, sounds right. Like, what the fuck? Like, we spend so much of our lives doing that, and we don't question what the fuck's going on in our head and where we're going and what the fuck's really going on.
Yeah, right.
Like, I think if we understood actually what was, like, dreams and what that was, that would even change the basis of our reality.
I think it would change. I think if we really knew what everything was, it would change everything, I think.
Yeah.
I think... Sorry, Lee,
sorry, Brendan. No, it's just a fascinating subject.
It is. I actually get quite a bit into dreams in particularly in book 2. There's really interesting research in dreams, which I covered in book 1 to some extent. And I mean, esoterically, there's been some really interesting observations made around people who are asleep and dreaming. And it's like, for example, there was a clairvoyant who would watch people sleeping, and she was able to see that there was this like separation of this other energy body that then kind of rises above the sleeping physical and just hangs in the air a few feet above. And then you've got this body is kind of dreaming its own like fantasia. It creates its own like little bubble reality that it thinks it in its state of kind of sleepiness. It thinks is real. And it can be clairvoyantly seen by people who have that skill at that level. And what I like about the dream is that I think it's a great metaphor or a microcosm of reality itself, because if you look at a dream, like everything in the dream, even though it seems real when you're in it, and you've got all these different characters and you're interacting with them and you're going on these adventures and weird stuff happens and it all seems really convincing, it's still 100% a creation of your psyche. Like literally, doesn't matter how separate you feel to any of the other individuals in it, 100% created by your consciousness with no exceptions. And that to me is just another microcosm of actual reality. It's what we call reality itself, is like I'm like interacting with other versions of projections of my consciousness here, and there's literally nothing that exists outside of that. That's one of the messages of the dream for me. But yeah, it's a very, very interesting esoteric subject as well.
Well, Brendan, what's your view on like deja vu type, when people say, that side of the dream?
Oh man, that's a can of worms.
Sorry.
No, like the deja vu thing it's really, we have a lot of different points of view on that, and it's because we live in a reality that's non-linear. We're in this field of probability, this consciousness field, and it's like all these timelines exist, like parallel timelines exist in this field at the same time. And so, one possibility is that we're tuning into something that, in a sense, has already happened. Like a future version of ourselves has already had this experience in a parallel reality, and then that information is reflected between the realities or the dimensions, and if we're sensitive to it, we can pick up on it. I mean, that's kind of like one way of looking at that kind of thing. Reality itself it doesn't really lend itself to great linear explanations of that type of thing, because it's not linear. Like our experience of time moving in a direction is a complete illusion. Like there's no forwards movement in time. It's just the way that our physiology and our psyches perceive things while we're built like this,
Yeah.
That's deep.
It is deep. Brilliant, mate. Just for that.
Yeah, you mentioned something before about the kind of like the separate, like I guess as the lady was saying, she'd be able to see like a double of the person. I've seen that a lot in art, and I always thought, or I started to think, because of my own experiences with magic and shit, that I started to think like that's kind of what's going on with dreams as well. It's like kind of you're almost semi-detached. And I've also realized since doing the Occult Rejects and just diving into a little bit darker stuff, we have come across artists that claim to have been SRA, satanic ritually abused. And some of them, do paint and stuff. And even in their stuff, they will depict weird fucked up scenes, but then having like a double of themselves above the person. And I always thought like what they're showing there is probably the trauma, I think, can also, which I even think is part of the circumcision in a sense, done to a child, that is going to shock the soul out of the fucking body a little bit, just out of preservation and not understanding what's going on.
100%.
So I find how like that even shows you separation of the soul from the body, and like, totally. So what I'm saying is like, I could see how the same thing is being used. It's just different ways of it happening. One is dreaming and one of it's because of traumatized.
Totally. And it's that's right, man. And it's if you generate enough pain, the psyche tries to, escape the pain. And so obviously dissociating from the body is one way to do that. And that's why you get those pictures and those people having those experiences. Even Carl Jung had a heart attack back, I think it was in 1945 or somewhere in the 40s. And he died temporarily and had an experience where he was up in the corner of the room looking back at his body. And he had an amazing experience, and he was quite pissed off when they resuscitated him, actually.
Like, just give me a few more minutes.
I love it.
He was really dirty on them.
Yeah. That's fun. He is he's considered one of the saints in the OTO Gnostic Mass.
Is that right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he has a pretty big impact in the occult community, the magic community.
That's
I tried reading one of his books, and I struggled.
Yeah, he's really good with occult archetypes.
He's phenomenal. It's the thing is, Lee, like, he's not for everybody. No. He's really not. Like, he was on his own fucking planet, really, and
it's literally.
Yeah, he was phenomenal. Like, the guy was an absolute wizard. He was a total wizard. He was a total he was in essence he was an alchemist, and he was more interested in alchemy than pretty much anything else. But his ability to see the esoteric side and the archetypal side of things was off the charts.
Right.
Well, in my opinion, his stuff, from what I have looked at and come across and read, I would say it's actually basically, like you said, he's showing alchemy, but I think from the flesh to the spirit. I mean, that's exactly what I think. He's showing it in an occult archetype ways. Yeah.
He was amazing. So that's really interesting that he but I'm not surprised that he's respected like that, because he definitely should be respected for what he accomplished, for sure. But yeah. So anyway, people do have these experiences, and there's actually a pattern to the out of body stuff. Like, people have a tendency to show up in a particular side of the room or a particular corner of the room. I think it was, if memory serves me, and I cover this in book 2. They'll show up. They'll go more to the top left corner of the room, more than anywhere else, or if they're standing by their body, or or their sense of presence by their body, it's more one side more than the other. So there's patterns that are actually in this material. It's not just people's figments of their imagination.
Wow,
interesting that, mate.
yeah, hell yeah.
So did you say you focus more of out of body experiences in book 2, Brandon?
There's a chapter on it. It's kind of like if you've read the first one, it's sort of there's like a logical progression where I'm taking people like deeper and deeper and deeper and like more and more woo. So book 2 kind of follows that trend. Like the out of body chapter is the second chapter. The mediumship research, which is a lot more than just mediumship research, is chapter 1. So it goes from like more like in the body orientation to more out of the body, infinite sort of expandedness as a progression.
Yeah. Ah.
Yeah, I get into a lot of really there's a lot of very cool material in there. I got to say, like I've read a lot of what's out there, and I don't think there'll be anything like this, and it's very, very deep.
Nice. And when do you think you'll be done with that?
Next year. I'm going to publish that next year.
Nice.
Brilliant.
And when did you put out the first one?
10 years ago.
Oh shit. Okay. All right. So it's been out for a while then. Damn. Okay.
Yeah, man. It's been book 2 is a long time coming, but I'm like, I just want to I want to get it out there and published because I already know where I need to go with, book 3, and I've had all this material building, and it's like, after a while you start trying to sneak in like book 3 material into the book 2 manuscript, but it's like, no, just keep it separate, one thing at a time.
So you have got a book 3 planned, Brandon?
Yeah, I'm going to keep going. There won't be any stopping.
Oh, good for you.
Why not?
Yeah. No, there's too much to talk about, man.
Yeah, just don't take 10 years to do the third one.
Oh, look, it's 5 to 8 tops.
Yeah, nice. Okay. Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think a lot of people also realize there's a lot of work going into putting out a book as well.
I could imagine there being.
Yeah.
It's a lifestyle. Like, when I was doing that first one, I was broke. I was constantly broke. I didn't have a job. I didn't do anything. I was basically a recluse who just, 7 to 12 hours a day was spent researching and writing, and that was it.
Well, that is a job in itself, Brandon.
Oh,
yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, 5-6 years of that, and yeah, you've put some shit together.
Yeah, I can imagine. We'll have to you'll have to send us some links for your first book.
Yeah,
so we can get them added to show notes, etc.
Yeah, thanks. I will.
Yeah, for sure.
Brilliant.
Anything else you got, Lee? Or because I'm actually gonna have to wrap this up soon. Anyway, though.
Well, I did want to go down subject, but
no. Go
long.
on. I got like another 15 minutes.
Viruses.
Oh.
It's a huge subject, but I mean, since Raven's covered like his experiences and his knowledge, it's just even more fascinating now than what it was previously.
Yeah. Okay. So I can't comment on Raven stuff because I haven't seen it, but if you have like anything you want to hone in on, let's do it.
Oh, for you to look into. Well, for a start, your thoughts on the old Uncle COVID. What's your thoughts on that?
Uncle COVID, yeah. The reason I call it Cooties 19 is because it's
Cooties 19.
It's every bit as real as Cooties.
Yeah, I mean, but what got me with it all is the flu. What we all get every year. It suddenly that vanished and made way for COVID.
Yep. And it's not just that they were diagnosing flu as COVID, they were diagnosing everything they possibly could as COVID. And that was because, the hierarchy, the medical hierarchy was giving these instructions. And they were also in certain places like the US, they were financially incentivized to make COVID diagnoses, in the most ludicrous of circumstances. But the reality is that if there's no evidence that the virus exists, and there's not, then COVID, supposedly caused by a virus, can't exist. Like, this is just basic logic. If you've done the homework on the virus, and you realize it only exists as a computer model. It is not found in the real world. It's a computer model. So therefore, it's very hard to catch a computer model and get sick. So this is what we're dealing with.
You got a computer virus.
Yeah, computer virus. That's right.
Virus, yeah.
Oh, fuck me.
It's so yeah, it's pretty. It's the thing is like, and I've really been kind of like shocked that, you know, we're nearly 3 years into this now, and it's everyone knows that this is a psyop, but the psyop term is short for psychological operation. Like, you've got to understand this is a mental manipulation on a level that beggars belief. Like, this is a level of illusion casting, spell casting that we've not seen before, and it is 100% about engineering perception. So it's engineering the perception that a virus exists. It's engineering the perception that COVID exists. It's all of this is the illusions we create in the mind based on the programs that we allow in or don't allow in. And this whole thing is a psychological operation. It's a psychological game. They have to program us to see certain things that aren't there so that we do certain things. And we're looking over here while they're doing all the criminal activity over here. We're distracted while they clean us out and engage in the Great Reset and all this sort of stuff. So it was never about health. It was never about a disease. It was never about protecting people. Contagion, none of that. It was that's all the surface level movie, the distraction theater, and that was the pretext for engineering the wealth transfer. And now we're seeing all the second and third stage of it roll out. You know, the attack on the food supply, the attack on the supply chain. All of this stuff is it's COVID phase 2, COVID phase 3, and in their own documentation, it's, you know, it's supposed to last. They're going to be doing this till 2025. Maybe onwards. You know, they're pushing this really hard. So understand that the game here is 100% psychological manipulation. It's getting you to believe in things that don't exist so that you will let them do things that you otherwise wouldn't do, and you would do things to yourself that you otherwise would never do.
Yeah, it's like it's all part of manipulation, mate, isn't it?
100%.
Yep, I totally agree with that. The whole David Icke would say problem, reaction, solution.
Yeah, this is the best example we've ever seen.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, they love it. I mean, they do. I mean, we had the old monkeypox. What is it? Apparently, only the gays catch.
I think that's more of their system propaganda, really, because what's happening now is people are having these horrible side effects as a result of the jabs, right? So it's like when they were calling the flu COVID, they were calling, you know, pneumonia COVID, all this stuff. Now they're just doing it with all the horrible skin conditions, the blisters, the rashes, and all this stuff that are the result of the poisoning from the jab, and they're calling this it's monkeypox.
I've actually thought that myself. I was like, I wonder if it's possible, if that's a reaction or a side effect.
It is. It's 100% because they're poisoning people with something that has never been done before. Like, this is technology we've never actually injected like this before. And I actually dedicated an episode very, very recently on the monkeypox thing because people need to understand what's actually happening here. And again, this is another phase of the COVID scam, and they're just simply rebranding. It's all a cover story, because if people figure out that they've been poisoned and scammed on the jab, there's going to be a huge backlash. There's going to be lawsuits. There's going to be all this stuff. But if you can keep
the uproar, won't there?
Total. I mean, like, even a lot of people who bought the narrative at this point are starting to have, you know, they're just getting fatigued by all the constant, you know, nonsense. And they're getting a bit over it. And so if you give them a window into the truth of this, there's going to be, you know, all hell will break loose. So I explained what's going on in that episode about, you know, monkeypox and how a lot of what's happening is herpes. And that's an acknowledged side effect in their documentation from the jab, all this stuff. I mean, it's all out there. Wow. I just put it together in a way where I also explained the psychosomatic stuff that's going on, and the psychological aspect of this psyop, which has been, you know, largely overlooked. And the fact that we can actually create disease symptoms through just being fearful or afraid or worried about it. We believe in something and we can actually physiologically manifest a symptom. That's a known fact, but it's not well known. And so we need to start getting on top of this. Like, the psyche consciousness here is the king. And that's why they spend all of their time and energy manipulating our minds.
Yeah, they know what they want us to believe.
Yeah, and we create the things that they program us into. Like, people got scared of having a fatal respiratory condition, And all of a sudden, every man and his dog is saying, "Oh, I've got COVID." It's the power of suggestion. We're watching the nocebo effect. It's the opposite of the placebo effect, the nocebo effect. You can create a disease if you are afraid. If you step in dog shit on the ground and you are really intensely repulsed physiologically, you can create a soiling conflict, as it's known in German new medicine, a soiling conflict, and you'll break out in a rash all around your foot. It's not because you picked up a disease. It's a physiological reaction based on your perception of the event, and our perceptions control or lead to adjustments in our biology. It's like why Bruce Lipton was going to call his book The Biology of Perception, but he ended up calling it The Biology of Belief. It's because our perception actually dictates what's happening in our physiological system. So if you believe 100% that you just got exposed to somebody who has cooties 19, you can manifest those symptoms like that.
I've wondered that myself, actually. As crazy as that sounds.
It does sound crazy, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I have thought the same thing.
I mean, this shit's like, guys, there's been studies done going back in many years. Like, we've known since the mid-1900s that hypnosis can remove physical symptoms and it can create physical symptoms. We've known that the placebo effect exists, the nocebo. We've had the Australian Aborigines who had the pointing the bone and sending someone away, and the guy would go away, leave the tribe, and die because he had the bone pointed. Like, it's all the power of suggestion, and we've got to stop buying into this whole thing. That's what I'm talking about. Like, the depth of this psyop. It's 100% psychological manipulation gets you to be afraid of something that doesn't exist, and you can physically manifest the symptoms in your body, and then you'll go, oh, well, it's real. I've got it. It's real. Yeah. And you've just created it because you believed if you believe intensely enough in something, you can generate it. You can physically manifest it or unmanifest it. And book 1, I showed to the nth degree. I had a whole chapter on the power of belief and the way that it influences the body. I covered a study that was done on knee surgery. This is quite famous. They had a group of people go in for a real knee surgery. They had another group of people go in for a sham knee surgery. And the people who had the sham knee surgery, so they just like cut a little slit and then they stitch it back up. So they splash some water on it, and they didn't actually do the surgery. They sent them out. And that group had at least as good results as the people who actually got the real knee surgeries. I mean,
sounds crazy.
That's wild. Wow. Ain't that some shit?
Is the depth of the psyop starting to sink in, people?
Oh, I think so, mate. I think so.
Like, we are that powerful. We are that powerful. And the people who have orchestrated this con are utilizing that against us because they know that if we are believing enough, intensely enough, we will create. We are creators. That's what we do. That's what consciousness is. Like, this is a dream. You've created this dream. Of course you can create physical symptoms of illness in your body. It's easy. We do it all the time. We just don't realize.
Yeah. Like when people suddenly, I've got a headache. And somebody else in the same area, I've got an headache as well. It's like you can't have nothing sometimes.
Damn. All right. Unfortunately, I have to get going now, Lee. So.
Yes, mate.
And you left me speechless.
Thank you, Brendan. Yeah. There's just so many directions that it can go. I guess it's like any subject, really.
Yeah. We'll have to get you on again and talk some more.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. Yeah. Fascinating.
Yeah, let's do it sometime. But I appreciate you guys having a chat with me. It's been fun.
Yeah, no, for sure. This was excellent. I loved it. Definitely, man. Thank you. And Lee, thank you for having me on with you. It was a great show.
Mate.
Yeah, had a good time.
My mind's pickled.
You pickled?
I love it. Gentlemen, NYP, would you like to let everybody know where they can get hold of you, please, sir?
Yeah, my stuff, just in the link tree. I'm on the NY Patriot Show. It's all major podcasts and on BitChute and Rumble and YouTube. And then I have the Occult Rejects, which is all major podcasts, BitChute, Rumble. And I even think I have the Spiritual Gangsters link in my link tree, which I'll just put it, I'll give it to you. All our stuff is on there. We do have Tor and More, our YouTube channel, which pretty much has like everything on there. So, I mean, that's like a one link thing to find everything. So.
Yeah, you are an OG legend.
Thank you.
Brendan, would you like to let everyone know where they can get hold of you, please, sir?
I think one of the easiest ways is Truthiverse.com. That's where the podcast is. Truthiverse.com. So it's spelled exactly how it sounds. Or my website is brendandmurphy.com. And I'm on Telegram as well. So Brendan D. Murphy Official is my general handle across the social platforms.
Brilliant. Well,
yeah, and I'll get your links from either you or Lee, and I'll add them into the YouTube and Lee's and the Facebook. So those, so at least people have your links hopefully soon if they watch the show.
All right, I'll shoot those over. Thanks,
nice one, mate.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Mind blowing.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Mind blowing.
And I will be talking to you both soon. And thank you again, Brendan. That was awesome. I had a good time.
Yes.
And
cheers, guys.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Later.
See you later, mate. Bye.